Recently, I got to design a skin for Rivals v 2, and I wanted to take you through my process making it. It's in the Rivals 2 shop right now as of releasing this video unless I did something really wrong, so you can go check it out and play with it in-game. If you do decide to pick it up, it'd be so beyond sick if you used code LASTTALK to support me. Thanks tons. Before we talk about the skin design, I actually think that it's a good idea to give you a little background on me. A lot of you might already know, but outside of Rivals of Aether, I'm a studio artist. I got my bachelor's degree in fine arts, more specifically studio arts, last December, and throughout this year I've worked at a public art studio teaching painting classes, and starting in the fall, I'll be attending a pretty prestigious art program at the University of North Texas to get my master's degree also in studio art. So when Edalis from the Rivals team reached out and asked me if I wanted to design a skin, I knew I wanted it to be something really neat that I could show off to my studio mates or other artists, but also something that would look cool in Rivals 2 for you guys. The only prompt that he left me with was to design something that was emblematic of my channel, and that it had to be a texture change, not a full model change. I really wasn't too sure where to go with the prompt of representing me and my channel with the skin, since I don't really show up in my videos too often. Not that I don't want to, it's just I look really dumb when reading these scripts alone in my room. And there's not really any core iconography used throughout the channel, past my last Saga channel icon. But even then, I wouldn't consider the icon to be iconic. I don't ever really reference it in my videos at all, and actually, if you want the background on that, I actually started this server and tournament series like 7 years ago to the week of writing this, and I put a Taco Bell icon as a placeholder on Discord, since it was just originally a server for me and my friends, and over time with making merch and content and partnering with dozens of brands, it slimmed down to be the icon that you see today. With that though, I knew that I wanted to keep the Last Talk icon in there somehow, but I wasn't really sure where to go with that. Obviously, I could slap the icon onto a character's forehead or onto a shirt and call it a day, but that didn't really seem to live up to my goals as an artist, since while it would be really easy, I'm sure it wouldn't look good. And as I mentioned, my two goals were to make a skin that I could be proud to tell someone that I designed, and make a skin that players would actually want to use. So I took a few steps back and thought of what would represent me in the game, since at the end of the day, I'm the one who makes the videos, draws the thumbnails, and runs my brackets, even if I'm not as personable on the channel as I'd normally like to be. So I started the same process that I used to make art in my normal art studio. Normally, I'll write down an emotion that I'm feeling, or an emotion that I want tied into an art piece. I'll throw some quick examples of past pieces that I've done up on screen right now. I think that when making art, this is a really good place to start, since art can be both personal, both for a creator and a viewer based on how they choose to interact with it. So capturing that feeling into a drawing or concept is always a high priority for me. I wrote down that I wanted my skin to feel energetic, exciting, and recognizable. These three concepts stood out to me since when I hop on the game, I'm not really wanting to feel really serious in any kind of way. Next, I had to decide my subject matter, or in this case, what character I wanted to design a skin for. This step was really easy for me, and I won't really take a lot of your time explaining it. I main Orcane, I feel like he's energetic, he's exciting, and he's recognizable. And so I reached out to Edalis and asked if Orcane would be a good character to draw for, and they said that would be perfect. With those guidelines narrowed down, it was time to come up with an actual skin design. But I was still drawing blanks. I went ahead and hopped onto the Rivals 2 wiki and took a peek at the last content creator bundle. There's the American Raster there, meant to rep Mango, and the Zetterburn skin that Alpharad had designed for Rivals 1. Neither of these skins really fit my aesthetic or what I was going for. Obviously, I was limited to the condition of not changing the model, so even if I wanted to do like a cardboard Arcane in reference to the Zetterburn, I just couldn't. And I don't have the kind of iconography like an American flag to put on a character. I guess I could do the Texas flag on Arcane, like yeehaw, like would you buy something like this? Let me know. But I decided to go ahead and widen my search for inspiration and check out all the skins that were in Rivals 2 already. But more specifically, I wanted to see the common ones that are just texture swaps for the most part, which is what we're doing today. Going through these, there's obviously all the animal-themed skin lines, where the designers have taken a fighter and imposed visual elements of another animal on top of them. I really thought these skins would all look kinda like bad going into this. I didn't think I'd find any inspiration here, since when I set out to do this, I wasn't really looking to make a skin with an animal in mind. I feel like that's already been done. And I also feel like it's really hard to take qualities of one animal and then put them on top of another without something kind of weird happening along the way. But I actually really liked the majority of the designs and got a lot of inspiration from these. Some of my favorites were the Wobbegong Slade, I hope I said that right, Bee Crag, Cal Loxodon, and Hornet Lorena, since the design elements and texturing covers the entire skin, giving the character a completely new look and pattern visually. Hi, okay, I'm really sorry to interrupt, it's a new day of filming, but I want to tell you about some upcoming charity events that I'm hosting, and some free giveaways, so please don't be too mad at me for jumping in here like this. First of all, we're going to be having a Pokemon Champions Wi-Fi Invitational. If you're a creator, you'd like to stream, you like to play Pokemon, you like Rivals, there's a Google form down below, go check it out. The winner will get $50 towards a charity of their choice, so super fun. Next, I've got 5 codes for the bundle to give away to you guys. One person who comments on this video will get a bundle, as well as one person who comments on the next 2 videos. So whatever the next video is, I imagine it'll be about the character reveal to Evo, if there is one. And then whatever my 3rd video is after this will also have a giveaway in it. And then the next 2 weekly tournaments that I host, I don't think that we'll have one this week, but after that, the winner of those will each get a creator code bundle as well to use or give to a friend. Thank you guys so much for supporting me and using code LASTSTOCK. Please use code LASTSTOCK. It actually goes like such a long way for these charity events. And let's go ahead and get back to the video. So I knew that I wanted to have some kind of design that incorporated a pattern or texture over Orcane's entire body. This was also probably the best choice for me to land on objectively for a character like Orcane, since obviously he doesn't have any clothes or articles to help break up his design like a character like Claret or Forest Burn do. Now that it was time to pick a texture to give Orcane, I thought back to how my channel didn't really have a centralized theme outside of Rivals of Aether. How would I go about representing myself or something that I cared about past just using the channel colors? Obviously, as I mentioned, I'm an artist, but how do you represent art as a texture or a pattern? I could do like a big Crayola Orcane, I guess, but I don't really think that anyone's looking to play as Crayola Orcane. So I took to my other interest and landed on an old friend of mine. Vivillon is a butterfly Pokemon, and she's been my favorite ever since I was like a little kid. I actually used to take my 3DS to school, and then I would like troll people and sweep them with a Vivillon. Like I would knock out like their Charizards and their Mewtwo's and all that, and I'd kind of like watch them rage. Like, I don't know, maybe I've always been a little evil with it. But I thought it'd be fun to see if I could get some kind of Vivillon-esque pattern onto Orcane, which shouldn't be too much of a struggle, right? Since there's right around 20 different patterns that Vivillon can have based on where you are in the real world when playing Pokemon. However, I've been using the Savannah pattern on Pokemon Champions, so I thought I'd start with that one. To design the skin, I started with the screenshot of Orcane and traced over it from google.com. I made the legs, bodies, and details on his body all in separate layers, so that I could design each portion of him separately, since at this point I really wasn't sure if I wanted to keep his underbelly white like his default, and the patterns on his paws. And I had that inkling that even if I didn't want to keep these details, I'd do some kind of change to the paws compared to the rest of the skin, to keep that visual element that I feel like stands out so clear in Orcane's default design. To get started, I took the ideas I liked with Savannah Vivillon. She's got these big rectangles of colors that fan out across the wings and kind of look like rays of light, and then that black lining at the end of the wings. I played around with putting these longer rectangles on Orcane, both radiating from his eye and onto his fin and legs. But the stiffness of a flat rectangle just didn't really look great to me. I thought it looked like it'd be a really neat tattoo on someone, or a cool design on a flat surface, but I'm designing for a 3D character model, even if the step of this process is a 2D design. And knowing that Orcane's movements in-game are really expressive and fluid, I'm not really sure if these flat rectangles or hard edges would fit the design overall. Sure, there's the concept in art that making something obtuse or awkward is what makes art art, but I'm not sure if that's what I'm going for in a design that I want you guys to enjoy. Since I don't know about you, I like to look at pretty things when I play my game. It's why I play Orcane. Look, he's like awesome. He's back there behind me. See? So unfortunately, I decided to take my concept of working with the Vivillon pattern and scrap it, and instead shift my focus to a real butterfly, while keeping the idea of using the channel colors as the main color scheme for the skin. As a kid, my favorite bug was the monarch butterfly, so I added a few pics of them to my design doc. Based on my research from already existing animal skins that I looked at in-game earlier, I realized that the ones that I liked the most were the ones that played with the concept and didn't try to literally represent a one-to-one of the animal that they were based on, but instead make the animal fit the character that they were already designing for, and find some kind of happy in-between. So as I was experimenting with different patterns and mock-ups, I landed on this more free-flowing, almost water-like interpretation of a monarch butterfly pattern for Arcane's body, using the same idea of having those accent lines start around the eye as the more original Vivillon or Arcane concept that I'd come up with for our last design. I went for a much more literal monarch pattern on the legs, since the edge of a monarch's wing is where you see that really distinctive shape and detailing. I also had part of the body texture overlap the legs to give the design a level of depth, since while we can't see it here on the 2D design, I imagine if the legs were completely separate from the body design-wise, it would just kind of come off disjointed and irregular looking. I left the feet a darker color, but I painted Arcane's nails with the lighter one. Monarch butterflies have these little spots on the outer edge of their wing color, but the majority of that outer edge is dark. So I tried to use Arcane's beautiful and natural features to kind of lean into this aspect and capture that part of the design. Finally, as I was working through Arcane's body with the patterning and moved on to his tail, I kind of came to a problem. It's going to be really hard to take all these really cool patterns on the body and then end them in a way that feels uniform and intentional. Since while I wanted the lines to feel free-flowing and move with Arcane's body, I wasn't really sure how I can transition that into a more smooth ending spot. Keeping the tail smooth was actually really important to me at the start, since in normal gameplay, that's the part of Arcane that kind of whips around the most, meaning that slow, flowy, and technical details could get lost really quickly in gameplay. After trying a handful of different variations, I came to the idea of sectioning off each line with just a little bit of color at the end of it, but not necessarily attached to the line itself. This does two things for the design that I think are really important. First, it adds clear visible stripes that clearly arrange the patterning from earlier, since they start as stripes around the idea, become flowy with the movement of his body, and then become straighter as they become part of the tail. Secondly, the little pieces of color to cap off each line helps me keep the lines from feeling too stagnant. Something I noticed about some of the skins that I mentioned earlier already in game is that if the texture was too crowded, it could feel hard to look at. So breaking up these lines helped me get a variety of color, without introducing any new symbolism that you weren't already seeing within the skin. Finally, by adding the dots, I'm able to show a form of movement. In my studio designs, I work with a lot of pencils, so I'm able to finely shade edges, but on a design like this, I decided to draw these lines fading away like I would with a marker, or maybe like in a cartoony animation. Maybe like you would see these lines behind a character as they move, helping me end this linear pattern, but to not really give us like a hard stop or a softly blended stop. This is some kind of in-between. Finally, it came time to design the tail. I knew I wanted the tail to feel connected to the rest of the body, so I took the line that was the highest up on Arcane and I merged it with the line that would be on the other side of him, since in a 3D space there's two sides to him, and let them connect to the fin at the end of his tail. Originally, I placed some detailed monarch patterning like I did on the fin on top of his head and on his feet, but I decided to simplify it into the general butterfly shape, since it looks too busy and kind of out of place. Since the transition from his body to his tail slims down the design work, it wouldn't really make sense for it to suddenly become over-detailed all at the end again. With the basic design done, it was finally time to put some polish on the design and go ahead and send it off. I was gonna draw the eyes in this whole time, but truthfully, whenever I was finishing this, it was right around 3 AM, and I kinda started to like how the eyes looked without the pupils. I think it held a more elevated feeling, and when I was going to add pupils and tried it, it took away some emphasis from the rest of the body when I used a color that was already in the design. And when I used a new color, since the eyes were already a new color, it overemphasized the eyes, taking away from that really clean texturing on the face and kind of bringing your focus into them. Finally, I put some extra angles of the skin design. I wanted the design team at Aether Studios to be able to get a full view of the concept and some of the ideas that I had mentioned, like the upper lines intersecting at the tail. It didn't really make a ton of sense from the flat angle that I had originally drawn on, and I also drew a flat head-on version of the facial design, since you can't really see that either from looking at Arcane from the side like you might in-game. I added a few notes detailing different design elements I had picked, as well as the hex codes from the colors, and the butterflies that I used as examples. I also actually looked at a Karner blue butterfly during this process. I didn't mention it earlier since its elements didn't really make it into the final design as much, But it's loosely where I got the idea of the tapered tail patterning from before, so I went ahead and I tossed it into the final design doc anyways whenever I sent it back to Edlis. About a week later, I got a render of the skin and I was like blown away. Not only because of how fast they had made it, but also how carefully replicated my design was onto the skin itself. It was really clear the designers took a lot of their time to match up with what I had made onto the actual model, which I'm so beyond thankful for, and I really think this turned out so beautiful. And that's more or less how Last Stock Cocaine got added into Rivals 2. Before I wrap up though, I do want to say thank you so much to the Rivals of Aether team for the opportunity. I love Rivals so much, and seeing even like a little piece of myself in game is so beyond sick. I also want to say thank you to you and everyone watching at home. When I started this channel actually 2 years ago to this week, I intended it to be like a little guide for me and my friends. They were playing Smash Ultimate and I played Rivals 2, or wanted to, at least at the time, it was in beta. And I thought that that could help them get into the game, but clearly it reached so many more people than just my friends. So just thanks tons to anyone who's ever watched a video, left a like, commented, subscribed, maybe used code LASTSTOCK, maybe entered one of my tournaments, or even just chit-chatted with me and my server. It actually means more than you could ever know. I'm so thankful for this opportunity and so thankful to be a part of the Rivals community. With all of that out of the way though, thank you guys so much for watching today. Go check out my skin, go play with it in game, send me photos of you using it, send me clips if you want a short put on the channel with the skin. I'll credit you, that'd be super awesome. And you use code LASTSTOCK, thank you guys so much, and I'll see you all in the next one. Good luck at EVO, y'all.